question so much better than I can. I tell you that. But for me, when we talk about the competencies and capacities, it has to do with cultivating imagination. You know, Shelley says in that last line of Defense of Poetry, poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. By poetry, that means just versifiers. It means all those who have the courage to muster imagination. What does imagination do? Imagination uses bits of the world to help create an alternative world in the world that people find themselves. And when the world that you find yourselves catch a light of hell, it's very dark and difficult. You need imagination to create another world. Literature does that. Poetry does that. Music does that. Look at Picasso's world. The blue stage. Different world. Young people need to get exposed to different worlds so that their sense of adventure and excitement and engagement is affirmed. And, of course, another way of doing it is what? Travel. I mean, the Greek word theory, which means not just to see, but to travel. To see different worlds, to be exposed to different worlds. And you can travel by being in the cell. Malcolm X turned the cell into a schoolroom, didn't he? And what did he learn how to do? He explored different worlds while he's reading his text in the cell. He became cosmopolitan in the cell because he's reading so much. Those of us who love to read, who read like breathing, we're continually exploring different worlds. That's part of the internationalization without getting on the plane as of yet. But you also then have to cultivate receptivity. Because you can go somewhere and not be willing to receive anything and end up just as flat-footed when you come back as you were before you left. You need to cultivate receptivity, but also the receptivity of various artworks. The text you're reading, the artworks you're engaging, and so forth and so on. So that the activity and receptivity go hand in hand. Of course, John Dewey talks about this, the great perspicacity in his classic Art as Experience. The creative role, which is active, but also the receptive role, which has its own kind of activity, but it's not the same thing as just creating. You're taking in, knowing how to absorb, knowing how. I mean, one of the things that I accent among young folk, I spend a lot of time in hip-hop studios, as you probably know. I go in all the time. I tell them, I say, God, it's so good to be so old. Here's old Brother West. He got some kind of educational discourse. I say, that's right. That's what I come in here, I say, I want to see originals. I see too many copies. Right. I want creation. I see too much imitation. I want to hear a voice, your voice. I don't want you to be an echo. Don't confuse being a voice with being an echo. And the reason is because our young people, what? They walk around with a stare. And young folk won't even look you in the eyes because the eyes are the windows of the soul. They don't trust folk. They've been wounded and scarred for so long. They won't even look you in the eyes unless they reach a certain point of trust in you. That's a stare. The vision is something else. Don't confuse a vision with a stare. So I tell the young folk, I want to see original. Go back and listen to Luther. Go back and listen to Curtis and Aretha. Go back and listen to Nina Simone and Sarah Vaughan. They were original. And I want to see voices. I want to hear voices. I don't want to just hear echoes. Usher, you try to get it together, but you better work it out, Negro. Not just about making money. You got to find your voice. Sly Stone found his voice. It takes courage. Not just about money. People don't want money. Yeah. But that's true in our lives. All of us need a quest for originality. And most importantly, to find a passion tied to your vocation, not just time spent in a job, in your profession. What is your real calling as opposed to your career? That's the kind of capacity that I want to access in talking about our relation to different parts of the world. So much, yes. Thank you so much.
Sure. First of all, Cornel, I'd like to thank you for coming today and for sharing with us. And I'm going to use one of your lines. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I know some of the problems that we're having in Pittsburgh is I think we have too many people with oral constipation. So they know what's good and right, but they just can't get it out. And I'm so short back here because I've had my head decapitated many times for speaking out and trying to fight for our children. And I was wondering, my question though for you today is if you you've had any conversations with Arnie Duncan, and if you see anything on the horizon that we might feel that's coming down the line, or anything that we as administrators from various parts of the United States could do to support what maybe you're hoping we see with Arnie Duncan as the Secretary of Education.
Well, one, I just wanted to congratulate you first on the work that you're doing. Second, no, I've had no dialogue with my dear brother Arnie Duncan, and I say this because, see, for me, the education of precious young folk is in no way a political issue. It has political dimensions to it. But each child in whatever kind of school they are, they could be in a private Amish school, they could be in an Orthodox Jewish school, they could be in a Catholic school, a charter school, or whatever. I'm still fundamentally concerned about their education, their growth, their flowering and flourishing. Structurally speaking, I want to put a stress on our public educational systems, and especially those locked at the bottom. I believe they ought to have much more of a priority these days. And so, as you can see, that tends to push me, not so much radically against, but over against the grain of the Obama people. And so they tend to hold me at arm's length, and I can understand that. I can be a bit cantankerous. Very much so.
Final question?
Yes.
Yeah. But what we can do, maybe we have three in a row, I want to say a word, then I'll answer all three.
Good morning, Dr. West. I'm currently, and a couple of my teammates are here, writing an application for an all-boys school that's public. And I want to speak to two of the things that you mentioned just a moment ago. The first being original, and the second being kind of re-highlighting or turning our attention to a population of young people of color that are not performing in the current educational system. So, and I definitely would love to speak to you more if you had more time, and my teammates would definitely like to hear your thoughts. But in changing this dynamic and presenting a nuanced view of what we're doing for young boys, particularly young men of color, I wanted to actually hear your thoughts about a boarding school experience, particularly one that's public and not, at the expense of the parents of $40,000 plus a year.
So I'm going to get to that. We're going to have two more, then come right back there. I hope you get a chance to chat with you after. We'll make sure we chat a little bit after. Okay. Two more quickly, because I don't want to push the program. I need to go.
Right here.
Yes, good job.
So, in regards to